Let's start with some music. The final moments of Ariana Grande's 2017 album, Sweetener. Did you hear it? All right, kind of a trick question. That's because Ariana Grande ended her album with 40 full seconds of silence. And the way that we just experienced that silence, without any context, I'm guessing that most of you didn't feel anything but confusion. But by the end of my talk, we're actually going to play the same excerpt again, and I'm hoping that your experience will be dramatically different. But first, let me tell you how I got here. When I was 12 years old, I saw an image that changed my life. Jimi Hendrix kneeled over his red electric guitar that he just lit on fire. As a 12-year-old boy, this was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I ended up asking for a guitar for my birthday that year, and my life has revolved around music ever since that moment. Now, I taught myself how to play guitar by learning my favorites by Nirvana, the Smashing Pumpkins, and the little pieces of Hendrix I could actually manage to pull off. But I remember it felt like magic, hearing the songs that I loved coming out of the guitar that I was playing. Somehow it made me feel connected to these artists. Obviously, I was nowhere near Hendrix's level, but those larger-than-life moments as a young kid sure felt like I was. So I ended up joining my first rock band in high school. You're supposed to laugh. And I would end up playing in bands for the next decade or so, writing and recording songs and albums, playing shows, chasing that classic dream of making it big. But about 10 years into this lifestyle, I became exhausted. I was tired of playing in dirty bars. I was tired of sleeping on dirty floors and eating dirty Taco Bell every night. But most of all, I hit a wall musically. I felt like I had taught myself everything that I could, and I was ready for a new challenge. And so, at age 27, I quit my band and enrolled at Sacramento State University to formally study music composition and theory. Now, at the time, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. I had written hundreds of songs by this point, and I knew how to play guitar and piano. But I barely knew how to read music, and I had absolutely zero experience with classical music, which is what you study at the collegiate level. Now, in retrospect, it was a pretty naive decision. I was suddenly dropped into this brand new musical world. Everyone around me had been formally trained since they were young. I mean, literally everyone was better than me. It was humbling, and at times flat out embarrassing. Seriously considered dropping out. But I did end up sticking with it, spending a lot of long days and nights playing catch-up, listening to nothing but classical music, reading books, and even taking online basic music theory courses on the side. And the more that I immersed myself into this new world, the more that I fell in love with it. And I came to love learning about the techniques that composers like Beethoven were using to write their music. I came to love learning about how the time and the place and the composer's personal lives was influencing their music. But most of all, I really came to love how learning all of this dramatically transformed my experience of the music and deepened my connection to the human beings who wrote it. Now, I'm going to try to give you a taste of that experience right now. Let's listen to a little bit of Dmitri Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony. All right, what'd you think? Kind of intense, heroic, kind of triumphant even. But now let's add a little context. This piece was written by Soviet composer Dmitri Shostakovich in 1937, a time when the Soviet Union was ruled by the murderous dictator Joseph Stalin. Now, Shostakovich was one of the most celebrated and popular composers during this time. But everything changed for him when one day Stalin himself went to go see Shostakovich's hit opera, Lady Macbeth. Extremely displeased with what he saw, Stalin walked out before it was over. Yeah, not good. 2 days later, a damning, ominous review of the opera appeared in the official newspaper of the Communist Party, which was Stalin's official mouthpiece. Titled Muddle Instead of Music, it criticized the opera for being too experimental, stating that Soviet music should be uplifting, accessible, and celebrate the state. They wanted propaganda music. And this review ended with a clear threat, stating that if Shostakovich kept composing experimental music, quote, things may end very badly. This wasn't a joke. In other words, Shostakovich was to compose propaganda music and celebrate the state, or he'd be executed. And so the symphony that we just heard was the first public work that Shostakovich premiered after this terrorizing review. The stakes, of course, could not have been higher. He was quite literally writing for his life. And on the surface, the symphony does toe the party line. To Stalin's ears, he heard it as a heroic celebration of the state. But to our ears armed with the proper context, and we can feel the terror just beneath the surface of the symphony's empty bombast. Indeed, we can hear the piece for what it truly is, someone smiling with a gun to their head. Now, understanding the context of this piece dramatically transforms my experience of it. And despite living in a different time, country, and under vastly different circumstances, I can empathize deeply with Shostakovich's experience through my experience of his music. And this became my biggest takeaway from college. Context became my entry point, and it dramatically transformed my relationship with classical music. Now, when I graduated, I did what a lot of us music majors do. Got a job at a coffee shop. But I came to realize that I had this somewhat unique musical background now. I grew up loving and playing popular music and later came to love and play classical music. I started to wonder if there was a way to bridge these two separate musical worlds together. Specifically, I started to wonder what would happen if I took the analysis skills that I honed in college, skills traditionally reserved for the same handful of dead composers, and applied them to contemporary music being made right now. Well, let's try it together. From his 2010 album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, here's an excerpt of Kanye West's Power.
I was drinking earlier, now I'm driving with a bad bitches, huh? Where you hiding? I got the power, make your life so exciting.
All right, Kanye here says, I got the power to make your life so exciting. Sounds like typical arrogant Kanye, at least on its surface. But again, let's add some context. Power was written in the aftermath of three pivotal events in Kanye's life: the sudden death of his mother, the breakup with his longtime fiancée, and most immediately, the enormous public backlash that followed his interruption of Taylor Swift at the 2009 VMAs. You might remember this moment. Kanye became the butt of every joke. His tour was canceled, and the sitting president, Barack Obama, even called him a jackass. And this cocktail of grief, heartbreak, and public exile actually sent Kanye into an extremely dark period. He would flee the country for a few months and would later admit to having suicidal thoughts during this time. And it's with this context in mind that I want to listen to that same excerpt of Power. This time, notice how the words "so exciting" echo and transform into the word suicide.
I got the power, make your life so exciting. So exciting.
The sudden musical transformation of "so exciting" to suicide mirrors exactly the sudden transformation of Kanye's once exciting life of fame and power, twisting into something far darker in the blink of an eye. Now, just like my experience with Shostakovich, careful listening guided by context, dramatically transformed my experience of the music. It revealed a new layer and connected me to the human being behind it. And I came to wonder, this meaningful exchange between artist and audience. It felt increasingly at risk in a world that's pushing us to consume everything at a faster and faster rate. And so, in 2016, I started a podcast. It's called Dissect, and on the show, I examine the music, meaning, and lyrics of one album per season, one song per episode. It was my attempt to preserve a space for this meaningful dialogue between art and audience. It was essentially what I used to do studying composers like Shostakovich in college, only now applied to contemporary artists and albums. For example, in season 6, myself and Dr. Titi Shodia examined Beyoncé's Lemonade, a profound piece of art in which Beyoncé uses a conflict in her marriage to educate us on the generational effects of slavery and systemic oppression. In season 7, myself and Camden Ostrander analyzed Childish Gambino's Because the Internet, a transmedia world in which Gambino searches for meaningful connection in the age of the internet. And what I've found season after season, album after album, is that these great works of art offered me an education. Just like studying Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony taught me more about the conditions of the Soviet Union, these great works produced today teach me more about the world I was living in right now, teach me more about experiences that are far from my own. After all, the music made today is inherently a reflection of today. And what better way to learn more about the world we live in than to study its music that it's producing in real time? In other words, what better way to learn than through the transformative power of listening? And to me, this lesson ended up transcending music. That context and really listening to one another is one of the best ways to cultivate a more dynamic understanding of the world and empathy for the people we share it with. So, let's return to Ariana Grande and that 40 seconds of silence that ends her album. What's the context? Well, on May 22nd, 2017, Ariana Grande performed in Manchester to over 14,000 people. As concertgoers were leaving the arena, a suicide bomber detonated an explosive that killed 22 people and wounded 1,000 others, many of whom were young teens and children. Sweetener was the first album that Grande released after this terrorizing event. The album's last song, Get Well Soon, was dedicated to the victims of the bombing. The end then seems to be a fitting moment of silence for all those who were lost. But why exactly 40 seconds of silence? Well, it brings the song's total running time to 5 minutes and 22 seconds. 5 for May, the month in which the bombing occurred, and 22 for both the day it happened and the number of victims who were lost. And so, with this context in mind, let's listen again. And that's the power of really listening. Thank you.